Hey everyone. My last video did pretty well, huh? The people in Swagter's Discord server whom I play on the Bully Online server with a lot were very positive about the video. This is gonna sound a bit cliche, but it genuinely felt really nice seeing people enjoy that video. I've never really interacted with the Bully community to this extent, so this definitely made me feel very welcomed. I even ended up being given the blue name tag on the server, which is only given to players that the moderators think are a good influence on the community. Swagter himself even ended up watching my review and he seemed to appreciate the feedback. So, following the success of my last Bully Online video, I'm gonna do another one. This one will be a sort of extension of my previous video. A quick disclaimer about this video is that it's gonna be a lot more negative than my last one, though I still stand by everything I said in my Bully Online review, and I still think it is an amazing experience. I want this mod to be as close to perfect as humanly possible, which is why I'm gonna talk about the issues I have with it right now, in its current form. Now, onto what you're here for. In my last video, I said this. There are more things about the server that I could discuss, but I want to keep this video at a reasonable length, so that's all I'm going to talk about for now. I wanted my overall review of the mod to be a reasonable length for the people who just wanted to find out information about it. 20 minutes, to me, seemed like the perfect length for the video. As a result, there are a lot of things that I left out of that video that I do really want to talk about. I'm going to use this video to dive deep into the stuff I wanted to talk about last time but couldn't because of the time constraints. This will include both major issues I have and the really tiny nitpicks. Now, let's get started. First up, let's go back to the minigames, since there is something I only briefly talked about in my video but that I want to dive deeper into. That thing being the money you earn from completing them. How it works right now is that players who place highly in a minigame will be the ones to get money. The amount of money given depends on a lot of factors, such as how many players are in the minigame. Getting top 3 is what usually gives you money, although lower placements can sometimes give you some if there are a lot of players participating. One thing that I don't like about the system is that players who place low after finishing a race do not get anything. Now that seems illogical at first, right? Why should you get any money from losing the race? Well, you see, there's a lot more to it than that. These races are pretty long, some of which having up to 7 laps in them. Every race takes at least a few minutes to complete. Getting nothing after doing all of that because you placed low feels a little unreasonable in my opinion. I do understand people timing out not getting anything because they did not complete the race. But taking the time and effort to actually finish these races and getting nothing because you got last feels like being kicked while you're down. Especially because it's not always your fault that you lost a race. Some of these races can be absolute arse, such as keeping it tight, where at certain points it is completely impossible to overtake someone who's ahead of you at certain parts. And certain races can be highly dependent on RNG, like the randomized checkpoint placements in the taxi minigame and the lawn mowing one, or hoping that the go-kart physics don't fuck you over, the latter being completely unavoidable when it happens. There's no magical skill or technique or force you can exert to make the go-karts not spin out for 10 plus seconds at a time. Nor is there anything like that to just give you better placed checkpoints in the taxi and lawn mowing games and others that use the same system. No amount of getting good can stop stuff like that. That's why I think it would be appropriate to give the players money even if they place low or last. It doesn't even need to be a huge amount. Just getting a few dollars for finishing the race would make the system much better in my opinion. Another thing that I think could be better is the minigame variety. As I stated in my last video, I do wish there were a couple more minigame types though. We have Rat Wars and a whole bunch of variations of races, but overall we kinda do just have Rat Wars and races to do at the moment. At least things to do that'll earn you money, that is. The low minigame variety definitely hurts Bully Online's replayability. Not everyone is just gonna want to keep playing races and Rat Wars forever. I can already tell that many people are hopping onto Bully Online, having lots of fun in the free roam before playing races and Rat Wars to earn money. Playing the minigames for a while and having a lot of fun with them. Eventually reaching their first $100 to buy a new character. Playing more and earning even more money, but realizing there isn't really anything else to spend their money on. Before eventually getting bored of the same old gameplay again and again, and quitting. The only long-term goal to accomplish on this server right now is grinding for money. But grinding for money gets old after a long time. More minigame types would make the grind less monotonous and keep people entertained. The best way to grind for money right now is to go to the Bullworth Academy parking lot or Blue Skies markers and doing the same group of races over and over and over and over again. At this point, I've earned over $5,000 on the server, and yet it really doesn't feel like I've gotten much out of it. I know that it will be worth it in the future, since I know that vehicles and housing will become purchasable, but I don't really have anything physically in-game to give me that feeling of accomplishment. And I'm the kind of guy who loves this server and loves a decent grind, but other people aren't going to be as driven as me and the other regulars are. There are lots of different minigame types that could be added. Things like class minigames or dodgeball or lawn mowing and such. The lawn mowing jobs especially, because we really do need some solo grinding methods on the server. But the one I advocated the most for in my last video was an official Fight Club minigame, and for good reason. Something to note with the races is that they only include the movement aspect of Bully's gameplay. And Rat Wars doesn't even feature Bully's main gameplay, since it's an entirely original FPS game, literally a different genre. This by itself is not a problem, since different minigame types should focus on different things. But when those two are the only minigame types that exist, they each have a heavier load to bear in terms of keeping people entertained. And at the end of the day, not everyone is a fan of Bully's racing mechanics, or this entirely original FPS game. That's why I personally think a Fight Club minigame should be one of the first new ones that get added. The idea heavily focuses on one single aspect, which is Bully's combat. And I'm sure pretty much everyone can agree that combat is a much more core part of the game than racing ever was in the base game. People host their own fight clubs on the server because people really do want to fight in this game. And it can get very, very competitive. The fight clubs are really, really fun to both participate in and watch. But right now, there is zero benefit to participating in them, and you can't make any progress on the server by participating in them. I'm confident that there's many people who will keep playing Bully Online solely for the Fight Club if they add it. There is also a lot of potential with such a basic idea. The most obvious one is a PvP 1v1 fistfight, but there is a ton you can do to mix it up and keep it fresh. You could make team fights of 2v2, or 3v3, 4v4, 5v5, 6v6, and so on. Or you could just ditch the team fights and have a giant fucking free-for-all with as many players as you want. Oh, and all of these are just fistfights. You could have all of these setups with the players carrying melee or ranged weapons. Oh, and I forgot all of this is just player versus player. You could have player versus enemies too. I mentioned an idea I had about this in my last video. Put a bunch of players in a big area like the football field, give them a bunch of weapons, and then see how long they last against an infinite swarm of enemies. It doesn't have to be endless either. It could be a set number of waves with any of the peds in the game you want to mix it all up. And you could combine all of those setups with the amount of other possible setups if you include weapons too. And you aren't just limited to the abilities of the peds in the base game. You could have peds with completely unique abilities, fighting styles, and stats. And you could also add special boss fights where the players need to team up in order to defeat the boss. Imagine teaming up with other players to beat up classic modded bully enemies like the Sheldonator or Gary Smith as a werewolf. And even then you could also add... I think you get my point by now. The amount of potential variety with a Fight Club minigame is completely insane. I'm not saying that the devs should literally add all of these possible things, but the devs have no shortage of different ways they could mix up a Fight Club minigame and keep it interesting. You could have just as much variety, or maybe even more than the races that we have right now. Before we move on, I just want to mention a teeny tiny little nitpick I have with the races. Many of the races will end with you being really far away from the original marker. This makes grinding at certain minigame markers a pain in the ass since you have to run all the way back to those markers after you finish the minigame or run to a different marker that's closer by. The players really should just be teleported to the original marker once the minigame results screen goes away. It would make grinding in certain locations like Old Bullworth Vale and other locations much more convenient. Since we were talking about Fight Club earlier, let's move on from the minigames and discuss something that I really want to talk about, which is the combat balancing on the server. The combat balancing is not the best at the moment. It's something that a lot of people have been complaining about, and it seems like the devs have taken note of that. Let's dive into the code and see where the issues lie. Every ped in the game has different stats based on their ped class. These stats are all stored in a file called pedstats.dat. The image you see on screen is an image of the stats of every ped class in the game. If this picture looks really fucking confusing to you, don't worry. I'll highlight the relevant sections. As a frame of reference, a spud gun shot deals 120 damage on a hit. All of the nerds and non-clicks get taken out in one shot by the spud gun. This also includes most of the bullies, preps, greasers, and even most of the jocks and all of the basic townies. Even then, the jocks and like 2 greasers that do survive will survive on a sliver of health. This makes most of the students extremely vulnerable to the spud gun, an easily accessible, high accuracy, high damage weapon. The only peds that can survive 2 spud gun shots or more are most of the boss peds, male townsfolk, and authority figures. I'm pretty sure anybody can see the issue here. Many people do not know about the piss poor health some of the peds have before picking which one to play as. This became a massive issue on day 1 when the ped switching menu was broken and didn't work. It ended up creating a huge power imbalance between the players, and even after the ped switching marker got fixed, this power imbalance still exists at the time of making this video. It's also bad because there is this teeny tiny little thing that some people on the server like to do. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but it's called killing you for no fucking reason. I do not care what anybody thinks or says. Nobody should be getting one shot by the spud gun by some asshole who thought it's funny or that they're cool by doing it or something. People complain all the time about the OP peds, but I'm less mad about the high ceiling than the really, really low floor. If the devs are going to rebalance the combat, they should give the much weaker peds a health boost. Admittedly, I do like the peds having different stats since it does feel more immersive, but I do think everyone should be able to survive at least one spud gun shot. I think all of the weaker peds should be bumped up to Jimmy's health at the very least, which is 200. And if Fight Club is going to be an official minigame, I think there should be a way for players to be able to vote if they want the health of both of the people fighting to be equalized or not. Equalizing the health to keep the fight entirely skill-based for the competitive players, and everyone keeping their default stats to make the fights more interesting in some cases. Even though I'm not really that annoyed by it, I still feel the need to talk about the overpowered peds on Bully Online. Of course, many peds are stronger than others, but there are two in particular that stand above the rest as the two most overpowered ones to play as. Who are the two most overpowered peds in Bully Online, you ask? Well, it's none other than Biff Taylor and Hector. Biff has by far the highest health out of all of the peds that players are able to play as on the server. He has a whopping 500 health and can take an insane 4 spud gun shots and still not get knocked out. He also has good punching reach because of his massive size, and he cannot be grappled. Hector, on the other hand, is also extremely overpowered. He's a male adult, which means he has 300 health. Less than Biff, but still pretty damn good. Though he has a tiny hitbox because of his small size, which makes him much harder to hit with attacks. Anyone playing as Hector usually ends up dominating Fight Club because of it. Though Hector also has the ability to softlock players. I think it's because of the citizen's arrest animation bugging out when using him. I would say that Hector is overall stronger than Biff. He's not that much squishier, and he can softlock people, which is very, very overpowered. Though weirdly enough, the devs actually locked Biff from being purchasable. The players who own Biff still own him and can still play as him though. I don't actually know why they locked Biff, but I think they did it because he's overpowered, but then why not lock Hector too? If that was the reason they locked Biff, then that's kind of a terrible way to go about it, since that only emboldens the players who own him to play as him. Biff is now this special, exclusive character that only a few people have. I managed to purchase Biff before he was locked, and well, he definitely feels special to play as now, so that's why he's been my main on this server. Though why the hell didn't they do this to Hector too? Sure, it still presents the same exclusivity issues, but I struggle to understand why they didn't do it to Hector, since he's even more overpowered than Biff anyways. But since Hector is the most overpowered ped, how would I go about fixing him? Well, fixing the softlock thing would definitely help, but I think giving him lower health would also help. It would add a sort of risk-reward factor where he has less health, but he also takes less hits. Just give him like, I don't know, 150 health so he can survive a spud gun shot at the very least, and I think you're all good. Though, if you're wondering how I would change Biff, honestly, I really don't think he needs that much changing, to be honest. Characters with more health like Damon still exist, and I haven't seen anyone complain about Damon, so I really don't think Biff having a shit ton of health really matters all that much. Though I am looking forward to seeing how the devs handle rebalancing the combat. Editing me here, I looked back at the survey that the mods put out a while back, and next to combat rebalancing, like, /stamina mechanics is there, and I don't really know what that means. They talking about sprint stamina? Because that sounds like a horrible idea, to be honest. I asked a couple players on the server what they would think about stamina mechanics, and it definitely seems like an unpopular idea for most. I I don't really know how to give feedback on this, because I just don't know what they're talking about, to be honest. Anyways, I'm gonna move on from combat and talk about something else. That something else being the skateboards. I think skateboards only being limited to players who played on the first few days of early access is a really dumb design decision. Bully's map may be small compared to other Rockstar games, but travel can still be a slog on foot. The skateboard was essential for making sure that travel was not a slog in the base game, and yet the devs decided to only give it to early players. But that doesn't really help the fact that right now, you're kinda screwed if you want one, unless you manage to find a player who's willing to sell you one. Though the limited quantity makes it a valuable item, so good luck finding someone who's willing to part with it. And even if they are, be prepared to pay a potentially steep price for it. To give you an example of how rare skateboards are, once I found a massive stash of 5 skateboards in one trash can. Well, first of all, holy fucking shit, who left this here and why? Because, dude, these are so valuable, why'd you just leave 5 of these in a random trash can? But since then, I've sold 3 of them so far, and I've made $900 in-game. That's $300 per piece. And I've still got a few left over in my inventory and my original one. You get my point. Skateboards are rare at the moment. No amount of "it will be buyable in the future" can fix the fact that lots of people do not have this extremely convenient tool right now. It's like telling someone who's hungry about how great lunch will be. Like, dude, that doesn't help the fact that I'm still hungry right now, you're just making me hangry. I stole that joke. It gets even more bullshit when you realize that races where you use skateboards exist. You literally cannot practice using the skateboard outside of these races if you don't have one. I mean, I know you can't use vehicles like police bikes outside of those races too, but still, I'm gonna complain about it. This is the complaining video. This is the video where I bitch and moan about every little thing. Moving on from that, let's revisit server moderation. As I stated in my last video, the development team desperately needs more mods. I have had play sessions where I've played on the server for hours and hours at a time without stopping, during which the mods would almost never be online. And because of that, I've seen people break the rules a lot. Since then, the moderators did announce that they were going to spend a week mostly focused on making the moderation better. This is good because the moderation hasn't been the best so far, though new issues have also come up since the release of my last video. A bit of an incident happened a few days ago from when I'm recording this script. people have figured out how to cheat on this server. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to disclose how he did it, but a player was able to give himself infinite health and ammo on the server. Thankfully, the tools that he was using weren't super advanced. And you don't need to worry about things like inventory being affected, since it's handled server-side and cannot be affected by changing only a single person's instance of the game. It took quite a while for the mods to get online and ban the cheater after people made a huge fuss about it on Discord, but they did eventually hop on and IP ban him. Speaking of which, the ban for cheating is irrevocable and the mods are not allowing appeals for cheating related bans. Even though I have been very negative in this video, I do have to give the mods credit for taking notes of the issues and actually doing something to make their rule enforcement better. Though there are still some things about the rules that are pretty unclear. Like, what's the stance on using glitches like the levitation glitch, and is it considered cheating to use it? In case you don't know, the levitation glitch is a bug that allows you to turn off gravity for yourself. The best use case for the glitch is on Stairway to Heaven, where you can completely destroy everybody playing the course legitimately. This is peculiar because, as I stated in my last video, and no, it's not considered cheating to brake bump or use the skateboard trick. The mods have confirmed it. It's fair game for anyone to use those exploits. But what about glitches like this one? It's something that everybody can do, so it could be argued that it's no different from brake pumping or the skateboard trick. This is a grey area where it's very unclear whether this counts as cheating or not. I think the moderators should clarify their stance on this and update the in-game rules, which you can see by pressing F1 while online. Also, I'm wondering how the moderators are going to moderate people speaking other languages. I've seen a fair few amount of people playing on the server speaking other languages, so it should be clarified what their stance on this is too. Now, let's end this video off with a lightning round of points that were too short for their own sections. Since the devs have expressed interest in a faction system, I would like to say that a faction system would be fucking amazing, simply for the insane gang wars, factions and alliances that would form on the server. Having the ability to create your own faction and recruit people would be a lot of fun. I have actually created my own faction for the server with a few people on Discord, but having it all be in-game would be really, really cool. If that were to be added, it would also be really neat to show the health bars of your faction members on the right side of your screen when they're online, just like when you have an ally following you in single player. Having trash cans be randomly filled with items when the server restarts would be cool and put trash cans to more use, since at the moment they're kinda useless right now aside from finding stupid notes in them. Please fix the weird bugs with the launcher when you're playing on controller. Adding something similar to GTA Online's passive mode would be great for the people who don't want to get attacked for no reason, or focusing on roleplaying or something else. Though if that was to be added, make sure you can still attack and use weapons on NPCs. Daily rewards or tasks would be great for the maniacs who play on this server every single day. What are you looking at me for? Give the player money even in a solo race if they get a really good time on it. A dedicated leaderboard for the players who love recording their personal bests on races would be great. I know a few people who play on the server who would really enjoy that. And finally, fix the weird bug where people don't respawn at full health when playing as certain pets. And that's everything I wanted to discuss in this video. I hope you enjoyed, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.